Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another Mattel Jurassic World Dominion release, and this time we have another of these Uncaged Rowdy Roars figures. We have actually already reviewed this figure in a way in the past, because this time we have Atrociraptor Ghost, but prior to this we have reviewed Atrociraptor Tiger. And to show you Atrociraptor Tiger, if you can recall that figure, actually I just put it over here, but there is Tiger next to Ghost. So it's almost the exact same figure, just different coloration. But sculpt-wise, again, looking at the two together, I really don't notice any differences or anything. And I really wouldn't expect to, since all of the Atrociraptors, for the most part, look, actually, I would say altogether, they look pretty much the same. Like, I didn't notice any real big differences. I mean, you may know something that I don't when it comes to the appearance of them, but personally, I definitely did not notice any differences between the different Atrociraptors in Dominion. So, again, I can understand why the sculpts would be the same, but we have just different paintwork for the newest one here, and if you are a big fan of the Ghost version, like I know many people are, this one might appeal more to you than Atrociraptor Tiger did. As far as the box art, again, it's this really cool kind of box art of like the Atrociraptor breaking out of the cage here in Malta, actually, and escaping, which I think is really neat, but obviously we have more of like a baby-like version of the Atrociraptor here. And then as far as the back of the box goes, you can again see the figure as well as the other Rowdy Roars figures that are in this line, all of which we have reviewed here on the channel already, and then kind of like a sneak peek over here of some of the action features and stuff of the figure. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out right now. So here is our adorable little Atrociraptor Ghost figure, and I really do like the fact that we now have two different variants of this version of the Atrociraptor. I actually wouldn't mind seeing the other two as well, but again, it's pretty neat having these two. And what's cool about having this one and Tiger, I would say those two are my favorites out of all of the Atrociraptors, so it was pretty convenient for me that they would give us the two that I like the most, but I would still like to see the others. But again, the detailing of this looks pretty darn nice. It was just as beautiful on the original one, and I was a big fan of that figure. And again, it looks really good here, and the paintwork does as well. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at it right now. Now, since this figure is the same sculpt as Atrociraptor Tiger, we don't need to go over the sculpt again, as we have already done that in the past. If you'd like to see a more detailed review of the actual sculpt of the figure, make sure you check out my review of the Atrociraptor Tiger version. But what we need to look at on this one is basically anything different between this and the previous version, which would definitely be the color scheme, the paint application. So primarily for the figure, we have kind of like a really nice off-white, almost bordering on a light gray for pretty much the entire body as far as the coloration goes. But you can also see that there is a nice speckling, like it's almost a little bit subtle. You would think it would be a little more obvious with such a light color for the primary part of the body, but it's a little bit on the subtle side, but it looks really nice. We have kind of like a brown, similar like brown like we have here, but like a dark brown speckling on the figure. And then speaking of dark browns, you can see a nice little healthy dose of it leading down here from the upper part of the head down into the palate, and you can also see it here bordering all around the eye and then leading down here into the lower jaw. We have the same eye, I think, that we actually had on Tiger. It definitely looks, let's actually bring Tiger up. So you look at the two together, oh no, it's actually a little bit different. It actually looked like the same eye at first, but there are definitely some differences between the two. So you have some nice reds, even some oranges, and then of course blacks, as well as whites in the eye of this version of the Atrociraptor. And I really love the very nice realistic kind of glass eye effect for these figures. And then, of course, we do have articulation in the mouth. You can see that we have a really nice dark pinkish tone of color in there, as well as a nice off-white for the teeth, and everything color-wise in there looks really nice. We also have a beautiful gloss coat shining ever so realistically there on the inside of the mouth. So definitely a very, very nicely done inside of the mouth for this figure. And then as you lead back here to the back of the neck, you have more of that kind of brown that sort of like stripes and designs through. You can see it continues as we move down the course of the neck with this very dark brown. But then as we lead down here toward the shoulder area, and well, the shoulder into the mid-back, you can see that we again have a brown kind of designing in similar fashion, but we have a much lighter tone of brown than we had prior. You could see a very, very light tone of brown, almost like a reddish brown, but as quickly as that appears, it disappears, and then we go back to that kind of dark brown that we had there on the back of the neck, and then we have nothing for the rest of the figure here as far as coloration goes, except for, again, the primary body color, and then that speckling. I will say the end here, the tip of the tail, the little articulated point, kind of has a little bit of a darker shade of color than you see elsewhere. So, I mean, sort of like we have some alternate coloration. But if you look here on the underside, you can see there's no alternate tones of color or anything. We don't have any painted nails. Kind of a gloss coat for the nails, which is nice to see, but nothing else outside of that. So that's really about it as far as the coloration goes. Again, the sculpt is the same as the previous Atrociraptor, which means it's very highly detailed and absolutely beautiful looking. But again, coloration-wise, there's not really much else going on. Definitely a really cool version, though, of a baby Atrociraptor Ghost. And then for a shot here of the two Atrociraptors together, you can see they are exactly the same sculpt, just different coloration, and they look really cool together. Like I said, it would be really neat to have the other two here to kind of join the group of Atrociraptors here and give us all four of them, but it's not a necessity or anything like that since, you know, they're not the greatest figures in the world, but it would still be pretty neat to have them all. But as far as articulation goes on the figure, again, we already saw that we have the articulated jaw. We also have the articulation in the neck, which can kind of wiggle more than anything. And then we have wavy, kind of dangling arms here. And then there's articulation in the hips as well, actually, as the ankles. And then the tail. And that's really about it as far as the articulation goes. And it's not really much articulation that, like, you know, you could play with or something like that if you were going to play with the figure. It's basically just articulation to, aside from the ankles anyway, but mostly it's just, you know, geared toward the action features. So to show you that, I actually have to go ahead and put some batteries in this guy because these figures don't come with batteries, just because I guess, you know, the action features would be kind of hectic to have occurring inside the box, so the figures don't come with batteries, so I'll have to pop some in, and then we'll be right back to check out the action feature. So as far as the action feature goes, we'll turn this on. It might start making noises right away. Nope. Okay, so far we're good. So we've got this little button up here to press. And as you can see, we've got all kinds of really adorable action features and sounds that occur with our little Atrociraptor. And obviously, you give it that little rub on the underside of its chin, and it starts moving all over the place. As far as a size goes, exactly, again, the same as the previous one. You're looking at lengthwise about, I would say right around the 8 1/4, maybe closing in at 8 1/2 inches, or around 21 1/2 centimeters. And then for a height, well, maybe it doesn't want to find out what the height is because it just ran away. But for a height, I'd say right around 5 inches or around 12 1/2 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. And I feel like these are the only figures that I really need for a comparison this time around, because we have done more comparisons with the previous Atrociraptor. Again, Atrociraptor Tiger. So if you'd like to see more, you know, comparisons, make sure you check out the review of the other one. But this, again, being the exact same size as the previous version, I really feel like, you know, they're not really necessary to do too many comparisons this time around. So this brand new Atrociraptor Ghost, the Rowdy Roars Uncaged version, is definitely another fun figure, but it's not any type of a must-have, especially if you have the Tiger version already. Then the Atrociraptor Ghost version might not necessarily be something that you really want, but if Ghost is more your Atrociraptor, you know, the one that you favor, the one you like more, then this one is definitely a fun one, because I feel like the sculpt, of course, is just as beautiful, just as vibrant as the previous version was. It really does have some fantastic detail throughout, and I really can commend Mattel continuously for putting their all into everything that they release as far as the detailing goes. Like, even when it comes to goofy, baby-like dinosaur figures like this, like, they always still go above and beyond to deliver an incredibly highly detailed and very realistic looking sculpt. But of course, The figure as a whole kind of has that more childlike look with the very far off proportions, the larger head, the short tail, the super tiny arms, the goofy looking body, incredibly large feet. So it follows the same trend as the previous Rowdy Roars figures. So at this point, again, if it's something you're a fan of when it comes to this type of an appearance, you're really going to love this Atrociraptor Ghost, I think, because of course, it really nicely kind of replicates what the Atrociraptors look like, but in this weird stylized form. But on top of that, the coloration of this one is actually really nicely done. I love the tones of color they've chosen for it, and I was a big fan of this Atrociraptor due to the colors. I'm, really big fan of the Velociraptor, the female Velociraptor from Jurassic Park 3, and the coloration of this one, although different, still sort of reminds me of that Velociraptor, and I think that's one of the reasons I was so drawn to this one. So I'm really happy to actually have this version of it as well. We have had now a few different versions of Atrociraptor Ghost, but it's really cool to have, numerous different versions, including a Rowdy Roars version. And I love the fact that we have that glass eye, because it just really does add a nice element of realism to the figure. And it's much nicer looking than the one on the Hammond Collection T-Rex. I wish the one in the Hammond Collection T-Rex was as highly detailed and as nice looking and looked normal like this eye does, because this eye looks great no matter where you look at it, whereas the Hammond Collection Rex, the pupil kind of disappears from all sorts of angles. But as a whole, it's definitely a really cool figure, and one that I can certainly recommend picking up. So if you are interested in grabbing this, I will include a link in the description to Big Bad Toy Store, where you can head on over there right now and grab yourself one of these while they are in stock. So make sure you check the link in the description, go grab yourself this Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor Ghost, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.